Welcome back. Season 1 of the director's chair. We're still in Twin Peaks talk, but we're near the end, guys. We're getting there. You can see the light in the red lodge, in the white lodge, in the red room. Got my co-hosts Kevin and Colin. How are you guys?
Doing great. Happy to be here talking with you guys as always.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to get into this. It feels like the Twin Peaks is back in these episodes. It feels like we're getting so much of the stuff I love about Twin Peaks again.
Yeah, I would say these are very 3 quality episodes that feel like as strong as anything in season 1 in my mind.
Well, and let's look at the first director, the one we've talked about numerous times, Leslie Lincoln Goddard. Yep. She is just one of the best pieces of ammunition in the Twin Peaks salvo. One of the best directors that they've had. That's not Lynch. Maybe the best outside of Lynch. Although Diane Keaton
is her last. Really great job. This is her last episode, sadly. But yeah,
it is. No, but man, I'm telling you, if you look at Leslie Lincoln Goddard's output for this show, I think she could be like your MVP who's not David Lynch directing. I think she could very well be the MVP of the first 2 seasons. It
certainly feels like she gets it, right?
She feels really she does. She really does.
She's on the wavelength, and she gets the thin line there of toting between comedy, melodrama, and horror.
Yes,
in this episode,
and I think her independent background definitely gave her the padding, like the information, the processing that she needed, to take over in something like Twin Peaks, because in so many ways Twin Peaks is independent, it is experimental, it's not the typical thing, and I feel like that was probably her background being in the more independent film world really probably played in her favor to be so effective in Twin Peaks. I mean, really and truly, some of my favorite episodes of this show, and that's going even into season 3 with The Return, are the ones that she directed. And this episode 23 in particular, is a really, really great one.
Yeah, it's strong stuff. And it really feels like we're in the 3rd act of the second season. The filler stuff is done. We're getting into the meat of stuff. We've got Wyndham Earle really taken off. We've got this great conclusion to Josie's story, which again, from the pilot has been, chugging along. We've got the new Ben. We've got this episode really kicks us in. We've got the inklings of this Donna and Ben connection that's starting. Like there's a whole we're into the like I said, the lead up to the conclusion.
Yes.
Yeah, we get Billy Zane shows up.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that.
Hey kids, Billy's in with hair, glorious hair.
Yeah, and what's funny is, of course, we're gonna meet Annie in the next episode. But what's funny is because of the age of Audrey.
Yeah,
right.
They didn't want, Kyle MacLachlan's like, no, we shouldn't do a romance between her and Cooper, which was the right choice. But
it was totally the right choice. No disagreement.
Billy Zane's character, I think, is supposed to be a couple of years older, but in real life, Billy Zane and Sherilyn Fenn are the same age.
He's actually a year younger than her.
Is he?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But he plays a more mature character. Like you totally buy that he's a little bit older than her.
Yeah, but not so much that it's inappropriate anymore. Right?
No, not like in a like skeezy way, but just like they're both young people. They're young adults. He definitely strikes himself the way he comes across with his very professionalism. He seems a little bit older. But again, not old. Let's just say more mature. Let's put it that way. More mature. That's a better way to phrase it.
And Audrey is being framed as really coming into her own maturity as well. In this
the way she's basically been kind of handling the family business while Ben has been off in his Civil War fantasy, like Audrey really steps up. And I really love the fact because she'd been gone kind of missing for a while after the One-Eyed Jacks thing. And it was so cool to see her back to being the Audrey that we love, that Audrey who like is a take charge kind of gal. She's smart. She's everybody like doubts her. Everybody thinks that she's just, some superficial, bimbo, and she's absolutely the smartest, coolest person usually in the room. I mean, I really, truly, Audrey is one of my favorite characters on the show, and a show that I have many favorite characters, but Audrey is always up there towards the top for me, and she's just, it's so good to see her get that attention, and I actually like the sort of, you know, the romantic tryst with Billy Zane. I actually don't mind it at all. It makes sense. She's earned some sort of romantic, you know, involvement, and he's a great choice. He's a good guy. He's environmentally savvy. He's got his own money, you know, like he's got his own jet, and he's
charming and handsome.
He is. He's charming and
very respectful of her.
Like he's very respectful. Yes, he is. I would be thrilled if I had a daughter and she brought him home. I'd be like, yeah, okay, marry him now. I want to fly in his jet. Let's do this.
And I think it's one of the later of these 3 episodes, but I like the scene with Ben and Audrey where he's telling a story about the Kennedys, and she's like, oh, well, that's why you have your brother do things. And he's like, no, I want you. I trust you to take care of this.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
It's all good stuff with Audrey and Ben, and you know, seeing Ben now, instead of having cigars, he's got carrots.
Oh, and him and Piper Laurie have a great scene together.
Oh, man, do they ever? Goodness gracious. I mean, can we all just, I mean, like, let's be honest, like, Catherine's one of the greatest you love to hate her characters, but at the same time, like, you love to love her too, because Catherine's amazing. Like, and Piper Laurie, man, there are not enough accolades for that woman on this show. Just not enough. She is absolutely outstanding.
Well, it is sad that this is the end of her and Joan Chen's, you know, story together. Because they were so good together.
Yes, they were.
Watching them, they were just such amazing, you know, adversaries. And I loved it whenever they were battling each other, right? And unfortunately, it kind of takes a tragic turn here for Josie.
Yes, it does.
And that's actually, it becomes like, because Josie's a character that you almost, you know, you want to hate her, but have trouble doing it. And she's, you know, there's times when you're just so frustrated with her, but I think by the end, I think you really understand just the dilemma, what she had to do to survive.
A truly tragic story. Like she's not a bad person. She's had bad things happen to her. And there's always that saying, hurt people. And she is to me like a prime example of that. You know, that's one of the things I've always appreciated about Twin Peaks is it's very much, it wears its soap opera influence on its sleeve. It truly does. But it really was never afraid to actually like dig deep into the idea of trauma. Family trauma, generational trauma, cultural trauma. And I think it doesn't get talked about enough of how well they handle it in this show. And we're really going to get into it in the return. But in this particular episode, when everything's kind of coming to a head with everything with Andrew, everything with Josie, like it's all coming to a head. And you just realize that Josie was just given the raw deal, man. Like she just never, nothing ever went her way, but it was never her fault. It was like she didn't have agency in her own downfall, basically. It's really sad, but it's true.
Yeah. And she did what she had to do to survive. And unlike Ben and Catherine, who she was going toe to toe with and holding her own with, she wasn't the bad person that they kind of are, right? Like she was able to, like, they're villains that you love to hate, right? And love to, like you were saying, love to love. She's not. She's as like, I think it's sort of at the end of it, you realize that she is a tragic hero that, you know, that unfortunately ends up losing. And it is really sad. Yeah.
Well,
it is.
She's being used and abused by these corrupt, powerful people.
And I think what hurts is when you see the scenes with her and Pete and the scenes with her and Harry, like you see the person she wants, the person she really is. Let's say not who it's who she really is, and who she wishes she could just be. And it really hurts that, you know, we come to love Harry so much too, and it hurts to know that Harry can't save her either.
Right.
And we'll see how that impacts Harry. But it really is one of those. She is a genuinely tragic character, and there's no other way to really describe her accurately than that. If you think she's a bad guy, I think you're wrong.
I think you really touched on something there, and I want to jump in here to point this out because I was thinking about this, and is that the theme of you can't save them is one that is explored throughout the series, and certainly in part 3, and we'll get the return.
yes.
We'll get to that.
Yes.
And I think that this is a really great example of that, of this hero arc that this series really subverts over and over again, right?
Yes.
And really questions that hero story that is so prevalent through so much of Western narrative, right?
Yeah.
And Josie's story is one of those. She the only person who's been able to save her is herself, and eventually she's unable to do that. But none of the men that have tried are able to.
No, they cannot.
Yeah.
They cannot, and it hurts because Harry loves her so much, and when you see the scene, and Michael Ontkean, I think always does. I don't think he gets talked about enough for how good he is on the show, but you definitely, when you watch the scenes with him and Josie, like, you believe wholeheartedly that woman is the greatest thing that Harry's ever come across. Like, he would give everything for her.
Yeah.
And it just hurts so much, when you get to the end of this episode. I mean, it's an odd ending.
Yes.
But it's also a very tragic ending. It's one of those
a very Twin Peaks ending too.
It is a perfectly Twin Peaks ending, yes. But it is really tragic. And it's, I also appreciate what this show does is that, when you lose a life, there is an impact. There are consequences.
Yes.
And we'll see how it impacts Harry. And in turn impacts Harry's friends within the sheriff's department, because it really wrecks Harry. And I appreciate the fact that they don't just let her ending is very weird and very Lynchian, but they don't let it just kind of end on this kind of goofy note. They let it permeate. They show that, just like with Laura Palmer, when there is a loss in this town, there is a loss. It is not one person only that feels it. There is a real genuine loss. And
it's her story. She's getting, like, it's not about, she's not dying it to forward Harry's story.
No,
right?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, you're
the one
that's
story, reacting to what's going on in her story. And this is the end of her story. And it's, and you're right, it reverberates. And I think that, the show does such a good job of really, playing with those expectations of what we expect the female victim to be in these kind of stories, right?
Well, and they definitely, in the first season, she comes across as sort of the femme fatale. I mean, let's be honest. She really does. And there's like scenes with Harry where you're like, she shows up in her lingerie, and Harry is powerless, man. Like he has no power. And let's be honest, I mean, like,
how can you blame him?
Show up like that, you're gonna be powerless too, man. That woman is beautiful on a level that cannot really be described. She's something else. Still to this day, a beautiful, beautiful woman. But you totally get it. And I love that they play up that sort of femme fatale aspect there with her in that first season, because again, they start making you doubt her. But then as it all unfolds, you start realizing that no, she's not what you thought she was. And there's a lot more tragedy to her than you ever could have imagined, like more than you could ever fathom that woman has went through. And she is, you hit it really well, Colin. She's a survivor. She is a survivor. And the sad thing is, when you're living your life as a survivor, you're kind of almost always running, and you're always on impulse. And in the end, it will catch up to you. And unfortunately, this is the episode 23, where we will see it finally does catch up to her. It's an odd way that it does, but it does.
Do we want to talk about that now? I mean,
that is the end of the episode, but we're already talking about it, so we might as well. Because again, there's some major things that happen here. We do, of course, find out for sure in this episode that it was Josie who shot Cooper.
Yes,
big deal. That's huge, because again, we keep getting she's evil. She shot Cooper. How could she do that? Cooper is our guy. Then, of course, we find out
Albert is all on that team. Mad at Josie.
He is ready.
Everybody was there. Everybody was there.
Even though Albert and Harry have somehow become bosom buddies.
And I love their friendship.
That's true. Then we do have to do a little shout out to that scene. I mean, their relationship roller coaster has just been such a fun part of the whole series. So
God, when Albert gives him that big hug, like, it makes me so happy every time. Like, and not like I'm not laughing at it. I'm just like, oh, like,
I know
it makes me so happy. Like, because I love Albert so much, and thank Christ Albert is with us in the return, because some of my favorite moments in the return are all around Albert. I'll be straight up with everybody.
I'm glad he was able to film those before he passed.
Yes.
He was really a very underrated actor.
Yes. And Albert, anytime I watch Twin Peaks, I get so excited when I know that Albert is going to be in the episode. Like, he just, Miguel Ferrer just had that matter-of-fact delivery that he could make you feel that big by, like, just saying your name practically. He just had that way. And to see when, of course, Albert and Harry have their big throwdown in the first season, and then Albert, of course, telling him how he chooses to walk the path of Gandhi. You know? And then, like, that's the last time we see them together. And then we have this episode where the first thing we see is him come in. He's happy to see Cooper, but goddamn is he happy to see Harry.
And Harry's happy to see him. And they're like all over each other.
It's so genuine.
Total bromance.
Like, it's so wholesome. Like, it's so wholesome, and it's one of my favorite moments in season 2. I mean, it's a small little moment, but it's a beautiful, wonderful moment.
Well, maybe that's why he's so hell-bent on nailing Josie, because he's now, you know, a fan of Truman and you know, and Cooper, of course, so he wants to stop her. But maybe he's reminding us of the way we saw her in season 1, because I think you're right. Like, the way the show sets her up, but then transforms how we see her is really powerful.
And keep in mind, Albert is only seeing what he's seen. Like, he doesn't know what all we know. So he just sees that she's a cold-blooded killer and she's got to be stopped because she almost killed Cooper. And he's probably thinking, I don't want her to kill my buddy. I don't want her to kill Harry. You know, he takes that personally. I really do believe that. And that's but that's sweet. Like, I appreciate that Albert has grown so much as a person in this show. Like, he's not just the one note, you know, like
matter of fact
guy. He really does have an arc, and it's awesome that he does. Like, what a great arc he has. So this episode chock full of goodness. Leslie Lincoln Glouder just really. Man.
Well, I think the ending is nailed by her too. Like, I think that
absolutely,
because this is the first time we get some of that. We get the Dream Man music back again. Like, she reminds us, and she's able to pull it off because of her connection to all of this. You know, that this is Twin Peaks, and here's some of that stuff. So we get that ending. So let's talk about her death and the and what we see after that. I mean, it does. You know, we see her basically just collapse in on herself, almost implode in the way that she twists herself up, right? Like, it's really kind of disturbing when you think about it.
No, it is.
And she's killed Eckert, and she is now, like I said, it's kind of imploding in on herself in front of Harry. Harry is devastated. There's this really tragic scene of him holding her, and then the lights come on, right?
Once Bob comes out, it just becomes like a whole different horrifying thing. Bob is just one of those great, like, disturbing images. Like, it's amazing that what a sweet, sweet man that Frank Silva was, by all accounts, sweetest man on the planet. And I love that his clothing for Bob is just his clothes, like literally his clothes. But he is so fucking terrifying. And as soon as you see him start crawling over that bed, Jesus H, man.
Well, it's reminiscent of the crawling over the sofa scene.
Yes, it is.
Insidious nature of Bob, right? The fact that he's there and he's sliming his way through your, you know, your room, your space, right? Could be anywhere underneath the bed, right? Like, it's the classic, you know.
And it starts bleeding into that concept that we'll see more of in Fire Walk with Me, the idea of how they're drawn to pain and suffering and death, the evil that men do. Because we've even kind of had the line, what if Bob is nothing but the evil that men do? But that has there's a lot to be said. That's a very loaded line. It really is. And if you think about it, Josie kills Eckhart. And it just leads to this. It's almost like that murder, that shot invites Bob in. It's so creepy. And when you think about it that way, the idea that these beings are just, there's a thin line, and it doesn't take much for them to be able to cross through into our existence. And this is one of those moments that reminds you of that. It's very chilling. You know, him asking about where's Josie and how's Josie doing and all. You're just like, and then you see, of course, the Man from Another Place show up, and he's always got the rhythm. I mean, that dude's always got the moves. He just does.
The
arm with his red velvet suit, man.
Her face on the on the
we go
what
to the
knob.
knob, yeah. And it's funny if you watch the show, and they didn't have it in the original run, but if you watch the Bravo edition where they have the log lady at the beginning, and she specifically in this opening talks about the knobs on drawers and how many of them are out there in existence, and what powers do they hold, like what role do they play, and yeah, that's absolutely setting up what is about to happen here. And it's one of those things. The first time I saw it, I'm like 15, and I'm kind of like laughing at it because I'm like, this is so bizarre and it looks so weird, and it's this early use of like CGI and composition shot. It's so bizarre that I just kind of laughed. I was like, what the hell was that? And now when I watch it, it genuinely is unsettling. Like there's something about it that's it's that uncanny valley kind of thing. I think that it looks too real and at the same time not real at all, and it's just awkward. And knowing that that's basically Josie's soul trapped for eternity in this small space of existence, like that's unsettling on a very deep level for me. Like it's claustrophobic, honestly. It really bothers me now when I see that scene. I don't see it as funny. I don't see it as anything other than tragic and horrifying.
The twisting sound of the wood, the scream, the like it's we talked about death masks, and there was I think the Logley talked about death masks in the previous episode, and there's similar sort of like frozen in the scream. Like you're right, I find it quite a disturbing moment as well, and this feeling like Josie will never get to be free. And I know there was some talk about having Josie appear in the final episode in the Red Room. There was some talk about her appearing in other, in the movie, in the Return. None of it came out, and so we're left with this. This is the last we get of Josie, and it is unsettling to think that that there's this prison she'll never be free from, and
and to be honest, like I never associated it with her being in the Red Room. I never did, and that would have felt really weird to me if they would have done that. It just felt like she's trapped in that, like the atomic space that would be in that knob.
Well, it's tied to old traditional ideas of ghosts about being trapped with unfinished business, or being unable to leave certain planes of certain spaces, and tied to that. So maybe there's something there. I don't know, but it's it does feel tragic. It feels very sad. I remember now when I watch this, I have a mix because there's two things going on. There's the loss of Josie and this very tragic ending that has not really devoid of much hope at all. Unlike Laura's ending that she ends up getting in at different points throughout the course of the series movie.
Yeah, there's some hope in some of that, but boy, there's none for Josie at all. There's none.
But then there's also this thing with Bob and the little man appearing, and the connection to the evil that's out there, and all of that, and seeing that. So, I mean, it's a really powerful ending. Again, I really feel like with these episodes, it feels like Twin Peaks has its groove back. And
I would agree. Sure.
We're in that dreamlike world again. We're into the magic and the mystery and the unknown and the myth building, and all of that is back. And it is too bad that this is the end we see of Josie, because she really was such a great character, and Joan Chen played her so well. And it's too bad that that's the last we'll see of her, but it is.
It is because I mean, at the same time, like I don't feel like I needed some sort of revisit in the Return.
Right.
It would have been nice to see her again, just because Jo Chen is a wonderful actress, and B, just a stunning human being. Like goodness gracious, I could look at her; she's just stunning. And not trying to objectify her, she's just a beautiful woman. But I would have loved to have seen her show up there. But at the same time, I think there's something. It makes what happens at the end of this episode more impactful, that there's no cop-out resolution or something like that. It is just tragic, boom, done. That's it. It is the tragedy of Josie. This is exactly what it is. And I'm okay with that. Like in the sense that you don't forget it. She's given a send-off that you certainly won't forget. You've never seen anything quite like it.
No.
And you don't forget it. And as we see again, going into the next episode, that loss is felt, and it's felt within the town, and I appreciate that very much. But in this episode, we got to get back to one thing, which is, of course, my favorite addition to the second season, which is Wyndham Earle.
Yes, he really is in high gear now.
His Machiavellian plot is just unfolding, man, and it's just everybody's involved now. They don't even know they're involved. It's chef's kiss great. I love it. And I apparently Lynch didn't like Wyndham Earle, and I hate that because I love Wyndham Earle. Apparently he did not, which is why he just got rid of him at the end. Well, spoilers, what happens at the end of the season. Right. That's why we don't see him come back in the return. But I personally love Wyndham Earle. I adore him. Sherlock needs his Moriarty. He is the perfect foil to Cooper. It's chef's kiss great. I mean, it really is. I adore Wyndham Earle. Maybe in my top 5 characters of the entire show, if I'm honest. I love him that much. He's that excellent of a character to me. I think Kenneth Walsh did a tremendous job with the part, and I think he's just a great addition to the world of Twin Peaks. But anyway, we get the whole thing of the poem.
Yes, the meeting of the eight
comes together.
Leo right for him, but the Roadhouse meeting with the pieces, and like how crazy that Wyndham Earle can have Leo write this poem out, and the way he splits it up, that each shred is its own poem.
Right.
When you put them all together, you get this full thing. Like that's 4D chess, man. Like this dude's on a different level. He's on a different level. And that's what I love about Wyndham Earle. He's terrifying because he can do shit like that. And he's sitting there in plain daylight in disguise and nobody sees him. It's just, I love it.
He disguises himself as a librarian, right?
Yes.
Or professor.
The professor, the professor.
Yes, that'll be next episode.
At Donna's house, claiming to be a doctor colleague of her father.
Colleague of her father's,
And then he's the trucker guy at the
And then he's the log lady.
Yes.
And he's a convincing log lady. I'm just going to put it out there. Bobby thought it was the log lady. He's a convincing log lady. He's got the legs for it. He really does. He really does. It's not front on that. But Wyndham Earle, again, is just one of my favorite things because, again, even before we finally see him, we know he's been there. And I think there's something so unsettling and so great about that he's been there for so long. We don't know when he showed up, but man, the dude has been there, and now he is really in full steam ahead. We're into the chess game of chess games, man, and it's just going to keep getting crazier. That chess game's going to keep getting more deadly, and I'm here for it. This is the good stuff.
I think he's an incredible villain and an incredible character. So
I do. I love Wyndham Earle.
And I love that his plot at this point, we're kind of almost thinking that it's just about getting revenge on Cooper, but it's really, that's just a side bonus.
Oh, that's a side bonus.
The reality is he's got deeper plans.
Yeah, icing on the cake is he gets to kill Cooper. That's literally.
And he needs this. He needs this queen so that as the key to unlock his entrance into the Black Lodge. And so he's trying to figure out who that is. Enter Annie in the next episode.
Before we get to the next episode, we got to talk about the comedy of the Pine Weasel and the whole fashion show.
Oh God, the Pine Weasel. Oh my God in heaven. Okay, so I know that everybody hates Dick, but God, I love.
This is where I like Dick.
Yeah, this is where I love his existence. The whole like wine tasting thing, the show, like, oh, we lost him.
Oh no, where did Cody go? We're not quite at the fashion show yet.
That's right. We're not there yet. This is just where Ben is announcing his plan, and we see the picture of the Pine Weasel.
That's right.
What the hell is this, Ben? Like, it's so great. But the Pine Weasel, it becomes a whole subplot that's so incredibly funny to me. Like it's so perfectly Lynch. It's so perfectly Twin Peaks. It's great. I would have never thought
time too, because you know, it was like at the time, those early, late 80s, early 90s, it was just really beginning to sort of have any kind of awareness about environmental issues, right? And so,
this is about the time I was starting an environmental club at my high school. No joke.
Exactly. It was just really becoming a thing. And so it just totally made sense to jump on that. The one thing we didn't talk about in this is that we get is this when we first no, it's next episode 2 where we get the puzzle box. So that's still the next episode as well. But if we're moving into the next episode, then I guess that makes sense. We talked a little bit about Earl showing up at Donna's house, pretending to be this dead guy, which is such a creepy way to do it, right? He knows full on that when her parents come home, they're going to say this guy's dead. It's so that he gives them the number of a cemetery, like very, very, like he's trolling them hard. Like,
no, he really is. Trolling is a good way to put
really
it.
Clever,
really clever. But there's something so inherently creepy about him being so comfortable just showing up to the house, coming inside, talking to Donna, sitting on the couch with her, just lying to her pretty face, and then just gets up and leaves. Like, totally
no big deal.
Yeah.
Just the Tuesday for Wyndham
Very
Earle.
creepy.
Yeah, dude, straight up. That is his M. Bison. For me, it was just Tuesday moment. Yes, that's it. No, it is really a chilling moment because we know in that scene that, oh Christ, this could go south any minute. Like, this guy.
Well, at this point, we all think he's going to target Audrey, Donna, or Shelley, right? And so we're all, because we've been following for the past year and a bit, we're all nervous about that, right? So definitely, it's as an audience, the first time you're like, oh, is Donna in danger, right? I mean, Donna's been in danger before. She was with Leland that one time when he. So it sort of brought back some of that energy.
Yes, it does. It really does. And again, Wyndham Earle, it's just that idea of him being so comfortable assuming different personas, changing he's a chameleon, and whatever he needs to do to get the information he needs to get, he's willing to do that.
But this is more about taunting because he knows they're all going to figure it out. Like he's giving them, he's telling them, this is how close I can get to you.
Yeah. It's genuinely, I can literally be in your house. Like I can be in your house and you don't even know.
Right. And he already knows Cooper's getting help with the chest too. He's like, nah, this is too good of a move for Cooper to have done on his own.
I love that they did pick Pete as the chess genius. It just makes so much sense.
It's so great. Like that's one of my favorite moments when he's playing chess at the Double R Diner across the table from all four of them and beats all four of them. Like it's like that searching for Bobby Fischer moment. But before that movie, I think, came out. So I think Pete was the original of Searching for Bobby Fischer. But it's so great. It's so great. And it's so perfectly Pete. I mean, Pete Martell, he is the gift that keeps on giving in Twin Peaks. Like he really is. He's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's really too bad he wasn't around for the return.
Oh, it is truly heartbreaking because I know
the nice thing about Pete is that even when they feel like they're just shoehorning him in to give him something to do, it's still awesome. It's still wonderful.
It is. No, it is. And so much of that is Jack Nance. I mean, you can tell Jack really loved being that character. I always loved his delivery. It's so like just kind of normal, but kind of on its ear. And I've always loved that about Jack Nance. And that he and Lynch thick as thieves. So I'm sure he was just so grateful to have the part and just really did everything he could with it. Even if Pete is shoehorned into a scene, that scene is better because Pete's in it. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's the Emmett Walsh of Twin Peaks. Put him in anything, and it's just better because he's in it. And Godspeed to Emmett Walsh, who just passed away this past week.
Say R.I.P. One of the greatest characters.
Yeah, R.I.P. I think maybe the greatest character actor of our generation. And really, truly, those people who add to just being there, they add so much. And Pete is definitely a character in Twin Peaks.
He's not a character. Like he gets the scene to mourn Josie as well, and that is really poignant. That scene is really great, and he pulls that off really well because Pete loved her too, right?
Oh, Pete loved her so much.
For sure. They had a great relationship.
Yeah, their relationship again is also so wholesome, and it's also why it hurts so much to see Pete lose her. Because that he cared so much about Josie, like in a very much like a father-daughter kind of thing. And I love kind of getting ahead a little bit, but I love that he kind of gets something like that with Audrey.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. That's one of the sweetest moments in anything I've ever seen. And I tear up every time. Like I literally do. It's so perfect. Jack Nance, his delivery, It's perfection. It really is.
Well, and one thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to say again about Leslie Lincoln Glatter and the way that she refilms that scene with Josie in the mirror to take us back to one of the very first shots of the series. To really sort of signal the, this sort of coming full circle. And I just, and again, it's a circle shaped mirror, and there's so many things about reflections and doppelgangers and
rings.
Like just everything, it just ties so much together. And I just, again, it really shows she gets Twin Peaks, and we're lucky to have had her.
It's definitely one of those, like in The Return, I was thrilled that David Lynch got to direct the entire thing, but if I would have saw that Leslie Lincoln Glatter was attached to an episode of The Return, I'd have been and like, I'm in.
Would have been
you
good.
Go right ahead. You go right ahead. That's an excellent choice.
So this is the one where we get the fashion show.
So anyway,
which is
this is where we get the fashion show.
And it's quite hilarious.
It is a really fun scene. Like this, again, brings back the zany, like the first season had a lot of zany in it, right? And so it does bring that back too, which is great. It gives, as I mentioned before, Dick is not one of my favorite characters, but I think here is where he's used well because he can be sort of comic relief, but be somebody that we're familiar with and have feelings about and already opinions about. And so, seeing all of that, and then with the Pine Weasel attacking him and everything, and the whole debate about whether you use a stuffed version of I just thought there was just so much cleverness in that.
And we get Andy fashioning some clothes.
Yes.
He is layered, to say the very least. He is layered.
Yeah.
But that's a great scene, and some lightweight with a lot of heavy stuff going on in the episode.
Yeah, you needed it. You needed that levity. It's important. And to see, anytime you get to see Dick get his comeuppance is just excellent. Yep. That weasel just attaching itself to his nose is just, holy shit, dude. It's so funny.
Well, and this is where we get the Ben and Catherine scene, I think, that you mentioned.
Yes.
Right? It's so good.
And you recognize, Ben might be trying to turn over a new leaf, but he's still Ben. And he's still, like that whole, like, you should write him be a big fat check. And she's laughing at him and he's laughing with her. Like, you would just, their dynamic is still so great.
It's so good. The two of them in any scene is great. Richard Bamer and Piper Laurie are excellent anytime you put them together. Whether they're in love with each other or adversarial, it just works. They're so good. Their chemistry was perfect. It really was.
Yeah.
But this is where Catherine basically tells him, like, your little pine weasel's not going to go extinct. Yeah. I know this is total BS. It's like, it's so great because it is so perfectly Ben. Like,
it is. It totally is. Yeah. And I love that. But we also get Catherine in her other sort of great scene with when Jones delivers the puzzle box, and you can see her scheming. It was, again, reminiscent of the insurance scene in the first season. So you can tell she's playing two-dimensional chess, three-dimensional chess.
She's on four-dimensional chess, baby. She's on that level too, man.
Right.
She's up there. She is the smartest person in the room, dude.
That's right.
I forgot to mention it, but going back to the previous episode, the whole exchange between Eckert and Packard in the elevator was great.
Oh,
yes.
God,
those two riffing on.
What a great scene that is.
Well, but you've also got
in ghosts.
Two phenomenal actors in that moment too, man. It's God, so good. Yeah, so good.
Very good for bringing that up, Cody. Thank you. That's an excellent scene. I love it.
Because we don't get a lot of what was his name? Dick Holler? Is that the actor's name that played Andrew Packard? Dick Holler.
Dan O'Harely.
Dan O'Harely. Yeah, Dan O'Harely. Yeah, we don't get enough of him. And
who worked with Miguel Ferrer in RoboCop because he's the old man at OCP.
Oh, I'd not thought of that.
Yeah. And he's also Greg from The Last Starfighter. I'm a huge nerd for that movie. We've talked about that many a time, Cody. We got to discuss The Last Starfighter. But yes, Dan O'Harely is and he's also, of course, the head of Silver Shamrock in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Yes,
so Dan O'Harely is just like man, what a great actor he was. There's something, his voice is just, and you put him and David Warner in a scene. Those are two of the best voices you've ever heard come out of human beings, and two of the finest character actors like ever. Like
two actors who love chewing scenery.
Oh man, do they chew it up? God, do they chew it up? Oh, dude, yeah. David Warner is again one of those actors. Anything, time after time, where he plays Jack the Ripper. Oh, if you've never seen that movie, get on it. Malcolm
that's one that I
plays
need to
H.G.
see.
Wells, and he goes back and he goes
in
his time machine to stop Jack the Ripper. It's Malcolm McDowell versus David Warner. It's as good as you imagine. It's great.
Right.
Great.
I need to see that. Yes.
Oh, let me tell you, that's so worth your time. What a great, like, just Sunday afternoon, put it on and just vibe with it. It's excellent. But yeah, David Warner is one of those, again, character actor that just anything he's in instantly becomes better just because David Warner is in it.
Right.
That man added gravitas to, I mean, he could have read the phone book and you'd be like, damn, I felt that. I really felt that.
His monologue in Time Bandits is still one of the all-time monologues in a movie.
And please tell me we're gonna have, like, and the three of us can get back on it, I'm sure. We need to do a director's series on Terry Gilliam. Like that needs to happen.
Lasers. That would have been day one.
That would be amazing.
I want to put that out there. But no, this there's so much going on in this episode.
There's the log lady and Major Briggs.
Yeah, they've got the connecting scars.
And finding out that they've both been abducted. And if you've ever read the books that Mark Frost wrote as companion pieces to The Return, they go in hard in the paint about how Briggs, the log lady, and Harry Carl from Harry D. Stanton's character, Carl from the trailer park, were all abducted. Like they've all, and Carl even says, we'll get there, but I'm just saying, he even mentions that he's been places. They all have. And it really starts to cement that there are people who are on different wavelengths in this show, and maybe there's a reason for that, an otherworldly reason, perhaps an extraterrestrial reason. And it starts getting real interesting because Briggs has that sort of radioactive looking burn on his neck. The log lady has the spire things on her leg. Like it's so great. Again, it's amazing that we're this late in the series and we're still building up that mythos.
Yes.
You know, it's so cool to see.
Technically, it's next episode, but see, we've mentioned the scars. I do want to talk about this because when Cooper draws them on the napkin, they're not the same scars. And that always bothered me. Like, why is it that what Cooper draws doesn't match with what we see in this episode? Like, it's always bugged me. And and I've never been, and again, when I watched it again, I was like, that's not because he goes from sort of a radioactive looking like symbol to 3 diamonds in a row. Like I've never understood. Does anyone have any theories on what's going on there in terms of, or is it just?
I'll put on plot armor for it and say that I could maybe justify it that Cooper, we see those designs as one thing, but Cooper, being in tune with things the way he is, he sees that they're almost like directions to a map.
Right.
And he's able to see what that is, what it's really showing us.
Maybe.
That's putting on plot armor. But at the same time, with what we know about Agent Cooper and the way that he perceives things, he is definitely on a different wavelength than others. It's not too far-fetched to say that he was seeing it on a different wavelength than what we, the casual viewer, were. Right. Is it plot armor? Sure. Am I making a defense for probably was just a simple gaffe? Yeah, probably. But can I make that and make it a statement, a defense that makes sense?
Sure.
Yes, you can. You can just chalk it up to it's Twin Peaks and supernatural shit, and it kind of it's like comic book movies. You know, all you got to say is it's a comic book. Okay, that's it. That's all you got to say.
Well, speaking of which, Colin, you were mentioning it before we talked about other things, but yeah, we get the introduction of Annie.
Yeah, Annie shows up.
Yes, we do.
Which, oddly, in real life, Heather Graham is younger than Sherilyn Finn.
But I do read the characters if she's supposed to be probably about 5 years older.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree with that totally. Yes.
To be
early to mid 20s.
Yes. Yeah, she's probably supposed to be somewhere between 22 and 25.
So I have a theory about Annie, and it's not one that is sold to me. I've read articles where people do this too, where there's this idea that Annie, the way that she kind of comes out of nowhere, the way that she's never mentioned up until this point, up until the episode before, the fact that she and Norma are sisters, but that their age difference is so remarkable. The fact that she even says in this episode or the next one that she feels like she's from another place. There's this idea, and I think there might even be some stuff tied into the books that I haven't read them in a while, but the books that Mark Frost wrote, that is there some sort of potential that Annie might be, you know, a plant from, you know, the firemen or the you know, the White Lodge, that she's not necessarily, like, nobody talked about her before. There was this idea that she almost appears out of nowhere, and she's almost designed to be, and I mean, I get this, that's how the writers wrote her, but she's almost designed to be the perfect match for Cooper. Like, in some ways it's almost, and like I said, I know other people have theorized about this too, but this idea that Annie may not just be in, you know, from the production point of view, sort of designed to slide in here and be what they need as a plot device to get, you know, to the end here, but that she also might be in the in-world reality, you know, sort of inserted into this story a little bit. And I think there's something interesting. And as I was watching these episodes again, with the first episodes, it, like, in many ways, I think you can really see that her otherworldliness, her oddness, and the fact that she even says that she often feels like she's from another place and that she never really connected. And anyways, this is my thoughts on Annie.
That's interesting, and it certainly makes sense, especially for where we're going in the show with her too.
I mean, you could almost imagine that, like, with Wyndham Earle getting his hints of power from the Black Lodge, you could almost imagine that she was designed by him.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at what
potential
happens,
too,
almost like she's like a tulpa of his wife, you know.
Yeah.
And we'll talk tulpas way more in season 3, but boy, if you wanted to get into the weeds about it, I'm not saying you couldn't make that argument.
No, right?
For
like
sure.
It's like, because, you know, we just spent episodes and episodes with Norma and her mom, and nobody ever
never a mention of the sister. Yeah, not one.
I got a half sister.
Yeah,
who's old enough to be my daughter.
But then at the same time, it's like remembering that Twin Peaks loves soap operas so much. That's such a soap opera.
I know,
right?
But it's kind of one of those things.
Sister.
I treat it though like a happy accident, like Bob, in that it wasn't necessarily the reason why, but once it sort of starts happening, it ends up being just making sense, right? Like, in some ways I sort of treat it like that, because you're right, it is kind of soapy that this long lost sister that's been in a convent for the last few years, right? Like, it's very soapy, which is great.
Part of it, yes.
I love that aspect of it too.
Yeah. She's been in a convent, and again, it's so perfectly soap opera. But
next episode, we get Harry gets to pull one up on Coop, because, you know, Coop assesses that Harry's in love with Josie, like, as soon as he sees Josie. So Harry's like, how long have you been in love with her?
Yeah. Well, you know, another thing we need to talk about, of course, is Harry and his reaction to the death of Josie.
Oh, man, we see a dark
torn up. Like, they got to take him to the Bookhouse Boys, like, secret headquarters to let Harry kind of sleep that shit off. And now you got Cooper being deputized as, like, basically a sheriff, because he hasn't got his badge back, I don't think, at this point. Or maybe he has. I can't remember now.
No, it's the next one.
It's the next episode. That's what I thought. So he's deputized basically by Harry, and in essence, the Bookhouse Boys. To step
him and Hawk are basically being the sheriff.
Yeah, like, I mean, he and Hawk have to step up, because Harry's he's out, dude. He's out.
And I like that they address that with Hawk too, and they don't just have Cooper step over him. Like, they actually sort of address it, and Hawk sort of says, "You know what? That's not what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in doing my police work. Somebody else should run this place." Like, not because he wouldn't be capable of it. He's probably the most
Hawk would be more than capable. Yeah,
but because it's not what he's interested in. That's not who he is.
He's like, not that he's chaotic, but he's kind of like the Qui-Gon Jinn of the police department. He just wants to do the job. He's not really interested in the minutia of leadership and the politics.
Right. No, that's a valid point. Hawk doesn't want to be tied down to a desk and paperwork. Right. Hawk wants to be doing the shit that makes a difference and gets shit done. Because again, if there's anybody else on the planet who is in tune with what's going on in that area, it's Hawk. And he knows that he is fighting forces that are beyond just drugs and violence that men do. He knows there is another layer, and he eventually talks to Cooper about the idea of what happens in the Black Lodge. Hawk is a man who knows shit. And
he talks to the log lady.
Yes,
I mean, that's later too, but
keep in mind he respects Margaret.
Yes,
and I've always appreciated the fact that he does. He never talks down about her. He never lets anyone make fun of her. No. He is just matter of fact. This woman is on a different level. Yeah, she's going to say some things that might seem weird, but just stick with it, because I promise you this means something. Yeah. And boy, we'll talk about it when we get into the return, but man, I could have used more scenes of Hawk and Margaret talking.
Like, for sure.
Goodness gracious, the two of them together. Any scene that you have with them together in the original run of the 2 seasons and the return. Yeah. You know, hats off to Michael Horace, again, a character actor. I don't think he gets talked about enough for how great Hawk is and how he gives him such nobility. Like. In any other thing, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s, Hawk is like your stereotypical Native American. And I appreciate the fact that Hawk is just like, he does have that sort of spiritual nature that we like to associate with Native American culture, but Hawk is also just like the man. I mean, he's out there macking on you know, Robin Lively. He's out there just, you know, he's getting his, man. Hawk's just the man. Like, he's one of those people, like, you know, if you had to go into, like, you know, in a battle, who are you bringing with you? You're bringing Hawk, because you know if Hawk's there, my odds of surviving and getting back home just double. Right. Like, I love Hawk so much. I love I love the entire Twin Peaks Sheriff Department. They're all outstanding in their own way. But Hawk is one of those characters that, again, as time goes on and I go back and watch it, again, if they would have given me more Hawk, you'd have never heard me complain. But at the same time, he's so perfectly used, and he only talks when he needs to. He only says what he needs to say. He's not a man of just filling your time with dialogue. Hawk's going to talk to you when Hawk's got shit to say. Yeah, I really love that. He's just great.
He's taking care of business. He and Cooper are, you know, trying to take care of Harry, but also trying to make sure things continue to run.
Harry, that has to happen.
This was a great bit for Michael O'Keefe, right? He gets to, like, Harry's always been this long, steady, present, strong. You know,
he's the Gary Cooper.
And now he finally gets to break down, right?
And break down, see a dark side, see him.
Well, and the chinks in the armor, right? Like, you know, Harry can't be perfect. He's got his weaknesses, and we know that Josie is by and far, again, carrying that sort of film noir, femme fatale kind of vibe. She is his ultimate weakness because he loves her so much, and I appreciate that Aunt King gets to really let Harry show the audience how much Josie meant to him. You know, we really get to see that, and it is heartbreaking. It's not done in a silly way or just getting laughs or anything. It is very much, it is heartbreaking. Harry really loved her, and he was powerless to save her, and it's one of those things that, you know, would haunt him to the end of his days. Yeah, like it just,
and like I said, I think that's one of the strong themes of this series is this futility of trying to save people, right?
And
we can't always, and maybe even the folly in it, right?
Yes, yes.
And I think that's really
from the very beginning. You know, the people couldn't save Laura, and the people couldn't save all these
people who were supposed to save
Laura.
We'll
get there. I think Laura saves herself, but we'll get there.
Oh, for sure.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet, but no. Spoilers.
But that's where I sort of land on that question. But I think it's, you know, and then this thing with Jones getting into bed with him and then trying to kill him, like, is that
that was wild, wasn't it?
Yeah. It almost, like, do you think it's just Eckert being, like, vengeful, or what's the point of, I don't know if I've ever felt like I nailed why.
I mean, it's got to be part of that, right? Because
I think it's very much
obsessed with Josie too.
Yes,
he was.
I feel like that's your answer. I think you answered it yourself. I really do. I think it's very much Eckhart. It's sort of that last straw. Like, if I can't have her, no one will, kind of thing. Like, that makes sense to me. Like, it really does.
Right. He's you know, it really gets back into the whole trafficking plot line, the ownership, this idea of you know, sort of control and possession and all of that you know, that these men are sort of playing with Josie's life and all of that, right? So I guess it's reinforcing some of that.
And then open to the next episode, and Harry's got to do some thinking, or he's going to be down for the count.
Yeah. So this, I think, is one of the more memorable episodes. This episode 25, one of the more memorable episodes in the series. There's so many great moments. David Lynch is back. Dwayne Dunham, again, another returning director.
In this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dwayne Dunham is one of the returning directors that again knows this series. Really captures the feeling of this series and delivers on an amazing. Like, it's got to be a bit intimidating to have David Lynch there be in your episode and be like, "I'm the one calling the shots here."
Right. But you get some great humor.
Episode.
You get some great humor in this episode too. The bonsai tree with the hidden microphone and Gordon Cole coming into the office
and being too loud.
Oh my God! That's some of the best stuff, because like Gordon Cole is one of those characters that, again, much like Albert, I get excited when I know that Gordon's in the episode because he's just David Lynch's delivery. It's so note perfect. I mean, like no one else could have played Gordon Cole but David Lynch.
And this is one of his great moments, right? Like, it's interesting because I was thinking about this when I was watching it. I was like, okay, so you are the producer on this show and you write yourself into a scene where you get to kiss one of the young actresses on the show. Like, it's creepy when you think about it that way, but the execution of it is just so wholesome, so sweet, so defining for all the characters involved in it.
The fact
that it's so perfect.
The fact that Shelley's voice is so perfectly heard by Gordon Cole, like it's just such a great joke where he's just like, "You didn't have to yell," and he takes out and he's like, "Say something again," and she's like, "Just shh." I heard that perfectly. It's so charming. It's so goofy.
Because Shelley is so Shelley, and he's so like they're all, and Cooper and Harry are watching it, and everybody is just so like, and it's just such a joyful.
It is. No, joyful is the best
joyful scene.
It is.
Which I think
one of the best
after some of the heaviness.
So one of the best responses by a human being in the history of human beings is like, would you like some more pie? Massive quantities and a glass of water, baby. My socks are on fire. Holy shit, dude. Like the first time I saw that, I had to like stop everything. I was laughing so hard. It's so perfectly delivered. God.
I think that scene though, like, encompasses what we've kind of heard or know about David Lynch personally as a human being, like outside of his work as an artist. Like, people say he's like a very sweet, nice guy.
Watching the behind the scenes footage with him, like that man is an absolute mensch. He just is the most sweet, adoring human being. Like, he loves people, and you would not think to create some of the horrific things that he creates, like you wouldn't think he'd be that guy's like Santa Claus, man. Like, everybody loves David. Anybody who's ever worked with him, they rave about what a wonderful human being and how he makes everybody feel so valued. Like everybody. And there's a cute scene in the box set that I have when they're showing the behind the scenes for The Return. And they talk about how when it's someone's last day of shooting, like David Lynch makes a very special moment, like brings everybody together and like pulls out his megaphone and is like, "Ladies and gentlemen," it was the Wally Brando scene. He's like, Michael Cera is done filming, and everybody's cheering for him, clapping and hugging, and it's so sweet. And I'm like, who else does that? David Lynch is like everybody's grandfather that they wish they had, basically. Right. I mean, by all accounts, he really is. And that's the stuff with Shelley. It doesn't come across as creepy because that Gordon's not that person. Like, he's not. No. And Shelley is like 18. Like, she's at least 18, 19.
I know.
So she's not like a 16-year-old.
Yeah, but I know what Colin's trying to say, middle-aged director.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. It is
the show.
Yeah, it's definitely
one of the young ingenues.
Yeah. It strikes anywhere else that strikes his casting couch, but not quite here. It doesn't quite.
It doesn't. And that's my point, is that it seems like if you read that scenario, you would think that. But when
if you read that on paper, you're like, God, that's horrible. There's a Netflix documentary coming out about this, right? Like,
right. But no, it doesn't come off that way at all. It does, and it feels so essential to the story.
Yes.
It feels so true to all the characters, but so much is going on in that scene. It's not just that, it's also the connection Cooper and Annie really making that connection. The joke, the penguin joke that doesn't make any sense.
The log lady thing, because Annie's the one. So your theory about Annie's the one that recognizes like the connection that Cooper's making there.
Right. Yeah. And Harry's recovering. He's like, they keep doing the recurring joke of telling him all these gross foods to eat so that he goes and barfs.
Yeah,
like
nothing to sober you up like someone trying to murder you.
Yeah.
Valid. Well, also too, like, God, you get, of course, Gordon is there to give Cooper back his badge, and that's a big, awesome moment. We know that Gordon and Cooper are like, they are thick as thieves, man. And again, God, like Gordon Cole is just one of the characters. I adore him. I adore his arc through the return. I love Gordon Cole. I love him so much. Anytime he's like Pete Martell, put Gordon Cole in a scene, it's just better because he's in it. Because the thing about, and this is tricky, what Lynch is able to do, but when you're speaking at that high volume, like there's a joke it's funny because he's speaking so loudly, but he still has to get the intonations in there.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do when you're just yelling stuff. And he really always gets it across. Like when Bobby shows up and he's like, "What's going on here?" And he's like, "Well, I'm giving her a kiss. Take a look again here, Junior. It's about to happen again."
Yeah. It's so one of the, and then we touched on this before, but one of the arcs over these 3 episodes that I really picked up on was this idea of men treating women with respect or with disrespect. And we see that, like, there's that scene in the library with Audrey where she runs into Earl and he pretends to be the professor, and you can tell at first he's being sweet and she's picking up on that, but then you can tell quite quickly she starts to pick up on, this guy's a creep and I need to get out of here, and she takes care of it. Like, she gets stuff out of there. We've got Shelley seeing Gordon Cole and seeing that she's being treated in a way that is respectful and is not about objectifying her, compared to
how she's treated by Bobby and Leo.
Yeah, exactly. We see Audrey with John Justice Wheeler and how he's treating her with respect, because there's even one point where she pushes back and say, "Hey," he goes, "Oh, just be yourself," and she goes, "I am being myself," and she really demands that he see her and treat her that way. And I just felt like there was this arc throughout this of the positive scenes being the scenes where you see the men treating the women with respect, and the negative ones being the ones where you see them being disrespectful. And I just felt like this connection with Annie and Cooper really sort of encapsulates so much of that. I just really found that pattern interesting to watch through the course of this. It was reinstated a few times, and then not getting the message, like Donna's mom, why am I forgetting her name right now, is basically telling him, like, he's trying to be good, but he's still not learning really what goodness is, right? Because she's giving him very clear messages and he's not letting it go, and she has to, and so we're seeing again those themes sort of coming through. I do love the scene where Audrey and Donna connect. Audrey takes her back through her secret passage so they can spy on it. We're starting to connect the fact, are they sisters, right?
Yes, man.
It's an interesting, it's a great little scene again with Audrey being like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna help here, right? I'm going to, be this, take this agency, right?" And Donna taking agency over figuring out, and she talks to her dad, and her dad's lying to her, and she's getting really upset because the Haywards have always been the example of how to do family right in this show, right? Like
they always have been
to the others, and now we're starting to see this fall apart a little bit.
I think
Eileen, yes, thank you, Eileen, yes. So I just found that whole sort of thread really, really interesting.
Another big thing we get with this is the petroglyph. Okay, seeing that stuff
more into the mystery, right?
The lore continues to build.
The one that points it out again. My theory about her being an agent of the White Lodge. She's the one pointing him in that direction.
Yep. Right. That's true. That's true. I don't have any real heartache with that theory. I really don't. For all the reasons that you talked about, I don't. I mean, Was it maybe their intention? Probably not. But can you justify it within the context of the world of Twin Peaks? Yeah,
absolutely.
Too. And I'm fine with any. Again, the thing about Twin Peaks, the great thing about it is whatever you take away from it is what you take away from it, and you're not wrong. Exactly. You know, and so no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. You can make that argument. You really genuinely can. The only thing I'll say you're wrong on is that 4-hour video that thinks they've completely explained Twin Peaks, and I'm like, no.
Right. Good luck, buddy.
Right.
The minute you think you've understood every single thing about it is where you've like proven to me you don't understand Lynch. Right. You just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't understand everything.
There's not incorrect things in that, but to have the audacity to think that that's what the entire series is about.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So it's no.
And we get the great scene with Andy as we're preparing to go to the cave with him spelunking in the office. That's a great scene.
It's
funny, and of course, Lucy, I think
which
Lucy
is always
liked it a little bit.
Yeah, and I love how again Lucy's like, I know you'll be brave, and I know you'll be, you know, she's placating him, but she's like saying to him, "Look, be careful."
And then he falls down.
Yeah. And I like how he just keeps going as if there's like more down there for him to go.
Yep. So it's all good stuff, man. And of course you get the final moment where Wyndham Earle enters the cave and there's that massive, rumbling and like an earthquake and the symbols shifted and stuff. Man, like again, the lore building continuing at this point. We're still getting new information, and we find out that Earle and Briggs had background, from their time in the military.
Find that out.
That stuff's really cool. Like, again, we're establishing these connections. There's no such thing as a coincidence at this point. There's really not. No. And I really dig that.
Because isn't it in this episode they reveal Earle was investigating space stuff?
Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm saying. He and Briggs were on the same project, basically.
Yeah.
It's very much in that Project Blue Book, stuff. Like it's all there. And if you know Project Blue Book, that's basically UFOs and stuff. So and again, it's that whole idea of the inhabitants of the lodge. Are they extraterrestrial? Is it more than just supernatural? Is it like truly like a other dimension of existence, like in a sci-fi realm, not in a ghost or horror realm? So there again, there's so many different levels,
or maybe in a Cthulhu-like realm.
Yeah, I was gonna say very cosmic
horror, sort of. Yeah,
you can definitely take the Black Lodge in a very cosmic horror manner, in a very Lovecraftian manner.
Yeah,
because it's all about basically losing your mind and your sanity, and that's all part and parcel with the Black Lodge. I mean, look at Earle. You look at his obsession with getting there, and that this man was a brilliant man, but then he started seeing all these things and something cracked. So yes, you can definitely play up to the cosmic horror of this. That is that's not a stretch by any means.
No,
not at all. It's very much there.
Yeah. No.
Now I can't remember. Is this episode where John Justice Wheeler leaves?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
I do like that story. Like, some people criticize John Justice Wheeler. I actually think his character is an interesting one. It's he does provide this.
Sure.
He does provide this like good fit for, just like in a way that Annie is a good fit for Cooper. He's a really good fit for her again, because he's respectful of her, but he's an equal to her. Like, they're both smart, they're both successful, they're both in charge of who they are.
He's basically, if Audrey was a boy, if Audrey was born a boy, that's what she would be. And that's again, they're perfect together. And I love the fact that that he very much looks at her as an equal. There's no again, the idea of what a relationship should be.
Yes,
not what Ben's relationships are.
She couldn't be an equal to Cooper. Like, there's just the age difference, or that the maturity, the points in their lives, right? Whereas with John Justice, she can be, and
she can be.
I've forgotten how pretty he was back then. I've forgotten how pretty Billy Zane was.
Billy Zane is a very handsome man in these episodes. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, he definitely was one of the, like, you totally get why Audrey would have fallen head over heels in love with him. And honestly, if you look at him, there are some Cooperish looks to like his hair and things like that. Like, she kind of gets her Cooper with him. I'm just going to put that out there.
Maybe she kind of does.
He kind of does. And she's earned that. God damn it. Audrey's such a great character. She's earned it. She's earned that relationship. And he is a good guy who has earned her.
But I like that her arc isn't to run off with him. Her arc is to enjoy the romance and learn and grow from it, but then continue on her path.
Yes.
Right.
She is, again, she keeps her own agency. She doesn't need a guy telling her, like, making her feel worthy or anything like that. And again,
that's right.
Revolutionary stuff for 1991, guys. Let's be honest. Like, this shit's ahead of the curve, man. It really is. And in all the best ways, it's ahead of the curve.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because she keeps focused on her, like, she's exploring this, she's enjoying it, but she's focused on her goals. And good for her, right? And so
now I will say we get more just of the creepiness of Wyndham Earle, where he's revealing his plan to Leo about the queen that he needs, and you have the face cards with the different people's faces on them and stuff.
Right.
Like, and it's so great because we have been so terrified of Leo, and now we're in a place where Leo is the small dog, where Leo is terrified of what's going on because Wyndham Earle he's chilling. He really is.
Leo's no match for Wyndham Earle.
No. And that's the great thing. Like, you know that if Leo can be controlled by this guy, like, damn, that's
Leo
serious
is just
shit.
a blunt force. Whereas
he's the blunt object. He's a sledgehammer, whereas Wyndham Earle is a goddamn scalpel. And that's what's terrifying about him, because he's a scalpel, but he's a goddamn evil, crazed scalpel. But like Cooper said, his mind is like a diamond. I mean, Cooper describes him perfectly. His mind is like a diamond, and I think that's really, the best way you can look at him. Again, this is the shit that gets me geeked in season 2, is everything with Wyndham Earle. Like, I hate that Lynch didn't like him. We can agree to disagree. I'd still have coffee with Lynch and not feel bad about it. But it's definitely, like, for me, the mythos building and Earl being a part of that mythos building. I think that's why I like him so much, because when he comes into season 2 officially, that's when that mythos starts really building out, man. I mean, every episode we're seeing more of Wyndham Earle, and every episode we're learning more about that world. And that is, again, as you said, Twin Peaks really finds its stride again here. And again, not that I don't have an issue with everything up to this point. But this is where it gets really good again.
It feels like they're doing, like, side episodes, and it's basically because they were ordered 22 episodes.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if this was on Netflix today, this would have been like 9 episodes. Dude, it'd been like done.
I was like, the show was never, like, dull to me.
That's my whole thing. Like, I'm, and again, knowing what Lynch and Frost intended the show to be, season 2 really is what they intended the show to be. It's more about, it's not just the Laura Palmer murder. It's all these other stories and all these other characters. And to me, again, a lot of people dunk on season 2. And it's easy to, when you look at how great season 1 is, but you have to remember season 1 is 8 episodes. 7 episodes, like 7 episodes in a pilot. Like, that's a very tight season. Okay. When you've got to spread things out, you have to find things of interest. But again, I'm one of those people that doesn't hate James's storyline in season 2. That finds the stuff with Andy and Dick and Lucy and the adopted kid. Like, I don't hate it. Is it great? No, but it's also kind of entertaining in its own right. And I can just roll with it. I love Andy so much, and I even though I hate the character of Dick, I love Dick because he's such a dick. I mean, he really is.
Well,
and he's very funny.
Incredible soap opera actor. But do you think that Lynch doesn't like Earl because it was kind of more, I mean, I know they kind of name drop him early in season 2, but do you think maybe their hand was forced in how they had to bring him in because the studio demanded they solve the whole Laura Palmer stuff?
That could be. I've never truly understood why he wouldn't basically like the Moriarty to Cooper's Sherlock Holmes. I would think he would find that really cool. Because he very much is all the things that Cooper is if Cooper went down a terrible path, basically. And that's interesting. And as much as David Lynch looks at, like, light and dark and good and evil and reflections in this series, Wyndham Earle is absolutely the dark reflection of Dale Cooper. You can't tell me differently. That's exactly what he is. So I'm with you. Maybe the only thing I can think of is that because they had to bring him in the way he was brought in. Maybe that's his thing. Maybe that's why he didn't like him. I've never heard the full details as to why he didn't like him. I've just only heard that he wasn't crazy about the character. And I don't think it's anything that the actor did. I think it's just more of the way he was brought into the season. Because again, Lynch wanted this to go on forever without ever addressing the murder of Laura Palmer. And when you bring in Wyndham Earle, let's be honest, when we get to that point, you feel that this is coming to a close. You feel that it's driving to this final confrontation with Cooper and Wyndham Earle. You can feel it coming. And maybe that's what Lynch didn't like about it, because it is sort of at that point a bit formulaic.
Right.
You have to eventually have good and evil. They have to have their final confrontation.
Yeah.
We're getting there. When you look at The Return, boy, he really spits in the face of all convention with that.
Yeah.
That's fine, because that's what he wanted to do. So to me, maybe that's what it is. It's the fact that Wyndham Earle does signal the beginning of the end for what we would know of the original run of Twin Peaks. That could be it, man. You might be honest.
Could be. I think we haven't mentioned that Donna gets a card from James. I'm not sure how interesting that is. I mean, it's just sort of keeping James in her mind that he's still out there.
And I'm fine with that, because again, James's arc had run, but I really liked the film noir femme fatale storyline he was involved in. I know a lot of people don't like it. I like it because it's at least something interesting for James to do. He's got something to do now, you know, and I like it. Yeah, exactly. And at this point, you're like, shit, James could get in some serious trouble, man. And if you like films like Double Indemnity, then you would like this little part. It just
I do think there was background stuff. I think he was trying to shoot a movie, and he needed time off the series, so there was things like that. But also, I think James had kind of run his course. Like, I think it could have been interesting if there had been the original season 3 for him to make his way back to Twin Peaks, maybe find Dawn in a different place. That could have been interesting, but.
And I think James Marshall at this point, he had been cast in A Few Good Men. I think that's what he was moving on to, because A Few Good Men came out in 92. So it would have been shooting in 91. I think
he was also making some boxing movie or something too. Yeah. He was looking at, he was going to become a movie star. It never really happened, but he was looking at that. And so these things are happening in the background, right? Like Joan Chen also wanted to do a movie that ended up, she ended up getting written out for. I think I read that she really only wanted to have a leave of absence, but ended up, they wrote her out. But I think, again, I think the network there's a number of things playing in the background, right? And some of it is just, we have what we have. And I think that they, like I said, I really like watching this arc again. I really felt like, this is the part that's gearing up to the stuff that I really like. Like, I'm really enjoying this run of the series. And again, I'm with you. There are parts of it that I enjoy more than others, though. And
that's with any show.
Enjoyment.
Any show. I mean, I can say the same thing about The Return. I love The Return in total, but there are things I like more than others. Sure, but that's any TV show. Name me any television show where you don't feel that way. There's always going to be certain characters you feel more about.
Series show that runs more than a mini series of 4 to 8 episodes, where you're like, every episode was 8 plus.
Exactly.
Every single one.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we're back. We're back into it. It's good stuff. We're getting into some exciting stuff. We're wrapping up to, as you saw, the lights at the end of the tunnel. And I think we talked about this. We're going to break the next 4 into 2 chunks, 2 episodes each. I think that makes the most sense, because we're getting into a lot of stuff coming up here.
Very heavy stuff, and especially the season finale. Goddamn, like that is
26 and 27 is I think are our next ones, and I'm excited to get into them, because there's some good stuff here too. For sure, including the episode directed by Jake and Maggie's dad. So
that's right.
Oh wow,
that's
so
right.
We got
coming
a
up on that.
dad and a Gyllenhaal dad.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. No, definitely. You're right. This is. I mean, to me, I've always thought when you get to this point in season 2, like, boy, it's like breakneck speed at this point, man. It is.
And the disappointing thing is that the series had pretty much been canceled at this point. They put it on hiatus for a little while. It came back for a late summer, for a summer run, just to burn off the last episodes. And some of those burnt off episodes are some of the best in the.
Oh man, series.
So,
wow, I'm seeing there was like a 3-month gap from episode 27 to the last 2 episodes.
Yep,
that's wild. So they had
Lynn came in and taught the world that television can be very, very unique when you get to the final episode of season 2.
Well, you'll notice the last 2 episodes were aired on the same day, Cody. They were basically a TV
series finale. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a movie, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
like the pilot. It went out like it came in.
Yep.
But but these last 4 are some great stuff. So I'm llooking forward about talking with you guys about them, because they're going to be.
Oh goodness, yeah. I mean, like, that's one thing about it. I will say it's hard to believe we're at the last 4 episodes, but again, gents, let me just say how much I have enjoyed the journey. And I know we still got more to go, because I was
going to say we're not done. We've got a movie. We've got 18 episodes of The Return.
But of the original 2 seasons, to be here at this point, it's really great.
This is a great point to be at. I love this point in the series. Whenever I get to this point, I'm always like happy to be watching these episodes again.
It was magical to, again, taking my partner through it this year, who had never seen it before at all. And watching her reactions to it, it really goes to show the show still very much holds up. It still offers something for people who are watching it now in 2024. And there's definitely, you still feel its influence all over everything in pop culture. I mean, it permeates it, and we're all better for it, period.
I don't think you can look at any of the revolutionary shows that came in the late 90s and early 2000s, that big boom, but not just with network TV, but with cable and premium shows, and not go and be like, well, Twin Peaks was a big Kickstarter for why those shows were able to happen.
And it's not even just like the storyline and the surrealness of it and things like that, but it's also just the cinematic approach. I mean, you just weren't seeing things like that on television back in the day that looked like that. And it definitely showed people that, man, you really can shoot television like you're shooting a movie. You can really approach it in the same way. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to follow what we've done for decades on television. You can really shoot it like a film, because what is your episode of television but a 1-hour film or a 30-minute film? And it really is amazing when you look at the quality of filmmaking on television that happens after Twin Peaks. You know, look at the X-Files. Can you imagine if that show was shot like a typical, like a Star Trek or something like that, where it's all just like in a studio with like a simple like background, backdrop set and some lights, and never being like in a real city, in a real forest, in like, really shooting it like you'd shoot a horror film or a science fiction film? It would be a totally different show. It wouldn't feel right at all. And granted, there are many shows that led to Twin Peaks being what it is.
Sure.
Always want to give a shout out to The Prisoner, and always want to give a shout out to Kolchak the Night Stalker and things like that. Like, those shows basically had to walk so Twin Peaks could run, and then Twin Peaks had to jog basically so the rest of Hollywood could run after that. I mean, it unlocked. Once that box, Pandora's box, was opened with Twin Peaks, it was never closed back.
Right. Well, thank you guys again. This was great as always.
Man, always a pleasure. Like, seriously, this has been just a real joy for me. Just getting to know you guys better through this. But with this being my favorite show of all time, it's like with anything, when you find people who have that same passion for the thing that you're passionate about, it's like you become like instant best friends, man. Like it's a beautiful thing. So God willing, and we'll all meet up somewhere at some point, and we'll get to like sit down and have drinks, and that would be amazing.
That'd be amazing.
It's always a pleasure. I will say just really quick, I had a really fun thing this weekend. I got to go to Horror Hound in Cincinnati, and I got to meet Robert Longstreet from the Mike Flanagan Planiverse.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, Midnight Mass, which is my favorite thing that Flanagan has done. I think Midnight Mass is one of the greatest things that's happened to horror in the past 30 years. And what a treat to talk with that man. What a genuine, like, good human being Robert Longstreet is. He's not on any social media, bless his heart. I've looked, he's not. But it was a joy to get to talk with him and just to get his take on certain things. For those of you who are watching, if you've not watched any of the Mike Flanagan stuff on Netflix, you got the House on Haunted Hill, the House on House on Haunted Hill, no, Haunting of Hill House, sorry, the Haunting of Bly Manor, Fall of the House of Usher, and then this amazing piece that he did called Midnight Mass, which I tell everybody is like the best Stephen King novel adaptation that was based off a novel that Stephen King never wrote. It feels so wholly Stephen King. And it's magical. Like that is truly on a whole different level.
In my eye, Flanagan is probably in my mind, he's in the top 2 of best horror directors right now.
I love his Doctor Sleep adaptation. I think it's amazing. The more I watch it, the director's cut, it's the more I just am like blown away.
And the more,
and we talked about that. I talked about that with Longstreet. The scene with the little boy, the baseball player,
Jacob Tremblay. Yeah,
I was like, okay. I said, I got to ask you something. And he's like, what? And I was just like, how did you all do that scene without traumatizing that child? He's like, dude, let me tell you right now, that kid, it was his birthday. He had just turned 12. Wow. And he said, we were traumatized. He was having a blast. He's like, we heard scenes, we're coming over top of him and he's like screaming. And he said, and then we cut and he's like, we all have to go off into like corners.
I read Rebecca Ferguson say that she found that scene so difficult to film and that she had to like walk off and take breaks and like.
And they said at the same time, he's like, while we're doing that, he's over there getting hot chocolate and laughing his ass off and having a great old time. He's like, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever been involved with. But he said when Flanagan took it to show Stephen King, when that scene came up, Stephen King even said, dude, you're going to have to cut a few seconds off of that. That's and Flanagan did. So the version that you see is the version that Stephen King said, okay, this is all right. And he looked at me and he's like, dude, can you imagine Stephen King saying, that's a bit much? Yeah. I mean, he wrote the goddamn book, right? Like, it's nuts.
I think what makes Flanagan even more like one of the better people to adapt King is he's adapted 2 of the most difficult books to adapt that people would have said, this is unfilmable. You can't make a successful, and he did it twice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, for me, Gerald's Game is a fantastic adaptation.
The way he merged the aesthetics of the book series and the movie series that were in sort of contradictory to him.
I mean, like, who the hell would want to take on the idea of basically making a sequel to Stanley Kubrick? Who wants to do that?
Yeah,
I know.
Although I will say this, going to throw that out there. Peter Hyams did a great job with 2010, the year we made contact. F the haters. That's a great movie. And here's my hot take. It's more watchable than 2001: A Space Odyssey because there's some goddamn humanity to it. But his work is always so cold to me. 2010 is not as cold as 2001. So I'm just going to put that out there. Now everybody's going to say, if you're horrible, you should never be talking about anything because now you're just nothing more than you probably think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the greatest thing that ever happened to cinema. No, I'm not that guy, but I love 2010. But to get to talk with Longstreet was really awesome. You know, as an actor, I've been acting since I was 5. To get to meet with him, because I told him, I was like, your work in Midnight Mass, I said, the scene where you talk to the little girl whose life you ended when you shot her with your rifle, when you shot through her spine, I was like, that's maybe the greatest like acting I've seen from any of the stuff that Flanagan has done. He's like, dude, that was real. He's like, I was heartbroken in that moment. And I was just like, dude, it shows. It's some of the most potent acting you'll ever watch. That guy is, how he's not doing more stuff, I don't know. But God, A, you know, if you've not watched Midnight Mass, watch it. B, if you're at a convention and you can meet Robert Longstreet, meet him. He's a genuine sweet man. Just tickled to talk to you about any of the projects you want to talk about. Loves talking about them, has a real passion for what he does. I cannot recommend meeting someone more than I could say recommend meeting him. He's
that's
fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Well, as always, like I said, it's been a great time. Thanks you guys so much. And
absolutely,
thank you guys for couple of episodes.
To do this. And yeah, we're almost there. I'm pretty busy for a couple of weeks. What's everyone's April 21st look like?
Should be good, I think.
I should be okay. Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll shoot for the next 2 episodes in that weekend.
Sounds great.
That will work.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, again, thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you for your passion and expertise on this TV show. And thanks for staying up late with me.
Well, Cody, as always, just thanks for putting it together, buddy. We appreciate it. And again, what a pleasure to get to work with you guys on this. Can't wait to talk about these last episodes because goddamn, there's a lot coming, man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You guys have a great rest of your evening, man. Take care.
You do the same. Bye.
Bye-bye.